Has anyone ever captivated you in 5 minutes and confused you for the rest of the month? Sometimes a smile is an invitation, other times it's a disguise. Today we'll talk about those who master the art of the mask, people who use charisma as a calling card, empathy as bait, and results as a smokescreen. This is where the Dark Triad comes into play: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Three gears that, when turning together, transform any room into a game board where you can become a pawn without realizing it. This isn't some distant documentary topic, it's a life strategy. Whether you're an entrepreneur, lead a team, seek a healthy relationship, or simply want to sleep peacefully, recognizing these traits is the difference between clear growth and paying dearly for naivete. The social psychopath doesn't see you as a person, but as a resource, and resources are exploited. The solution is simple and powerful. Understanding the darkness gives you a competitive advantage. Not to become cynical, but to become aware. Those with a defined purpose don't become pawns in someone else's game. Those who train their minds to see patterns don't fall for the froth of beautiful speeches. Those who build solid habits don't sell themselves for glittering promises with the soul of a switched-off refrigerator. The story repeats itself with a predictable script: a triumphant entrance, irresistible promises, silent control. At first, everything is bright. Then you discover that the brightness came from a fire. Therefore, in this video, I will show you how to sharpen your social radar and strengthen your decision-making core so that no savior rents space in your life. We'll talk about subtle signs that appear in speech, in the eyes, and especially in the consistency between what a person promises and what they deliver when no one is looking. You'll leave here with 5 practical filters to recognize a disguised psychopath, and more importantly, with a method to shield your path using 3 pillars: a clear purpose, a trained mind, and planned action. No panic, no paranoia, just method. Stay with me until the end and transform shadow into strategy. Today you learn to identify the mask. Tomorrow, no one else dictates your destiny. Let's start with the camouflage narcissist. Unlike what many think, the narcissist of the Dark Triad isn't the classic vain person who shows off excessively on social media or lives in the mirror. They are much more subtle. The real danger lies in the one who makes you feel too special, too soon. The Dark Triad narcissist is an architect of admiration. They construct their own image with surgical precision. Every word is calculated, every compliment is bait, every gesture is part of a script. Initially, it's impossible not to be drawn in. They seem confident, engaging, capable of making you feel you're in the presence of someone grand, and that somehow you are privileged to be there, and that's where the problem begins. The narcissist needs you to believe in them, to continue fueling the fantasy of greatness. They suck your admiration like someone drinking water. But don't be fooled. They don't want you. They want what you represent. It could be validation, status, access, influence. You become a mirror, and mirrors aren't allowed to reflect their own light. What this type of person fears most is you beginning to shine autonomously. Then the enchantment breaks, and you cease to be useful. Elizabeth Holmes, founder of Theranos, is an almost textbook example. She was young, articulate, intelligent, and had a fixed gaze that seemed to hypnotize. She created an empire promising to revolutionize blood tests. CEOs, politicians, investors, all captivated. But behind that calm speech and that black uniform inspired by Steve Jobs lay a billion-dollar lie. Her narcissism didn't show itself in selfies, but in the almost religious conviction that she was too special to fail and that the world should believe it, no matter the cost. If you want to identify a disguised narcissist, don't just observe what they show, observe what they hide. See how they react to not receiving attention. See what happens when the focus is on someone else. A narcissist might even compliment others, but only as a strategy. When there's no longer a stage, they dismantle. And then you become ignored, discarded, or sabotaged. Dark Triad narcissists don't have partners, they have an audience. Here's a metaphor. Imagine you enter a theater. Everything seems perfect. Lights, scenery, music. The main actor enters, and you feel you are witnessing something grand. But when the play ends and the curtains close, you realize there's no structure behind the curtain. Just an empty set. The narcissist is that actor. And you, if you're not paying attention, could be the producer who financed the illusion. Therefore, the only way not to fall into this game is to develop a solid identity, to have a clear purpose that doesn't depend on external applause. When you know who you are, you don't need anyone to tell you. And more importantly, you recognize when someone is trying to use your thirst for recognition as a tool of control. Clarity about yourself is the antidote to the narcissism of others. But be warned, identifying a narcissist shouldn't serve as an excuse to point fingers or build excessive emotional walls. It serves to filter. It serves to protect your energy, your time, your focus. Genuine people don't need artificial shine. They have their own light, and they don't compete with yours. So the next time someone seems too good too fast, ask yourself, what does this person see in me? What do they want to see in me? And most importantly, what happens when I don't put them center stage? If the answer is disdain, coldness, or veiled retaliation, you might be dealing with a dark triad narcissist, and the best defense against them isn't confrontation. It's absence, it's silence, it's distance, because what hurts an inflated ego most is finding no more mirrors in front of it. Now let's talk about the Machiavellian, the master of invisible strings. Unlike the narcissist who seeks the spotlight, the Machiavellian prefers the backstage. They don't want to be seen. They want you to act as they want, without realizing you're being manipulated. They are the cold strategist, the architect of convenience, the artist of control disguised as good intentions. Unlike the psychopath who feels no empathy, or the narcissist who needs yours, the Machiavellian might even seem empathetic, but only as far as it helps them achieve a goal. The first thing you need to know about someone with this trait is that they never reveal their true intentions. Their words always have layers, and their actions are merely pieces in a long-term game. They will seem like your friend, your mentor, your ally, but not because they care about you. They care about what you can offer. They are the type who gives you advice just to see you choose a path that unknowingly favors them. They don't shout, they whisper, they don't impose, they suggest. And everything seems like your decision, until you realize that unintentionally you've entered the labyrinth they built. There's an old saying, the devil doesn't come with horns. He comes as everything you've ever wanted. That's the Machiavellian. They disguise themselves as solutions, opportunities, support, but they're always 10 steps ahead. They observe, gather information, identify your weaknesses, and when the time is right, they act, subtly, precisely, leaving no trace. In the corporate world, this profile is more common than you might think. A co-worker who constantly praises you, then uses your confidential information to curry favor with the boss. A business partner who seems generous but always comes out on top, even when the idea was yours. They gravitate towards the powerful, flatter the influential, and distance themselves from the weak. Not out of character, but out of convenience. They only move when there's something to gain, and if you don't realize it, you end up being just another piece on the board they control. A notorious real-life example is Frank Abagnale Jr., whose life inspired the film Catch Me If You Can. As a teenager, he conned banks, airlines, and even the FBI, posing as a pilot, doctor, and lawyer. His greatest asset, his ability to appear trustworthy, to make people think he was exactly what they expected. And the most curious thing, he didn't need strength, just social intelligence and emotional coldness. This type of person teaches us a powerful lesson. Not all intelligence is noble, and not all calm behavior is trustworthy. Some people use reason not as a moral compass, but as a weapon of silent domination. If you lack a clear understanding of who you are, and where you're going, you become vulnerable to manipulation. The best way to protect yourself from a Machiavellian is to create absolute clarity about your values and goals. When you have a defined purpose, it becomes harder to be diverted. When you sharpen your perception, you begin to see patterns of behavior where you once only saw charisma. The Machiavellian thrives on confusion, doubt, and inaction. Therefore, their greatest enemy is someone with clear vision, a sharp mind, and the courage to say no. Remember, control doesn't have to come from above to be effective. Sometimes it comes from the side, from someone who knows you well enough to push the right buttons without you noticing. Develop the habit of observing more than listening, of questioning intentions gently but firmly. And most importantly, of not compromising your truth in exchange for approval or momentary comfort. The Machiavellian is like a chess player who never moves the queen first. They wait, they measure, they act at the right time. But if you understand the game, if you see the whole board, victory isn't theirs, it's yours. Because in the end, whoever controls their own mind is controlled by no one. Now let's talk about the disguised psychopath, perhaps the most dangerous of the three. If the narcissist wants admiration and the Machiavellian wants to manipulate, the psychopath just wants to win. That's it. The difference? They feel no remorse, they don't care about the means. And more than anything, they can mimic human emotions with frightening perfection. The social psychopath, the one who walks among us, not in prisons but in companies, governments, churches, and even your circle of friends, is an expert in emotional performance. They observe what moves people, learn how to react to pain, joy, guilt, and they act. But deep down inside, they feel nothing. It's hard to accept this, because the idea that someone can look you in the eyes, smile with apparent sincerity, hug you, and still feel absolutely nothing for you challenges our sense of humanity. But it's real, and what makes the psychopath even more dangerous is that often they are charming, likable, elegant, and charismatic. Unlike what fiction suggests, they aren't dark and strange. They are engaging, they are trustworthy, they are whatever you want them to be. Ted Bundy was one of the most cruel murderers in American history, but he was also handsome, intelligent, educated, and articulate. Many of his victims trusted him precisely because of this, because he didn't seem like a threat. He seemed like a promising law student, a kind young man, an ordinary guy. And that's the cruel lesson the psychopath teaches us. The real threat doesn't come screaming. It comes smiling. It dresses like your ideal. The functional psychopath, the one who operates in society, doesn't necessarily commit violent crimes, but they destroy lives with the same coldness. It could be a boss who pits employees against each other for pure pleasure, a partner who sabotages you emotionally but always seems innocent, a politician who manipulates thousands while smiling for the cameras. They feed on your sense of justice, your tendency to forgive, your hope that everyone has a good side. This is where we need to do some internal work, because the best way to identify a psychopath isn't by waiting for them to reveal themselves. It's by strengthening your own perception, training your mind not to confuse friendliness with character. Character isn't measured by smiles. It's measured by patterns, by repeated actions, by decisions made when there was no advantage involved. Develop the habit of observing the consistency between words and actions. A psychopath might say they love animals but be rude to a waiter. They might claim to value honesty but lie effortlessly if it benefits them. They test your boundaries gradually. They start with small transgressions, minor abuses, slight omissions, and watch how you react. If you excuse everything, rationalize everything, prefer not to see, they escalate, and they escalate with the certainty that they won't be stopped. Protection against this type of person isn't about becoming suspicious of everyone, it's about becoming discerning. When you have clear values, strong self-esteem, and a well-trained mind, you begin to notice signs you previously ignored. You start asking silent questions. Does this person truly listen to me, or are they just pretending? Do they respect me when I disagree or only when I agree? Do they change when they're not being observed? These questions don't require judgment. They require attention. Because a psychopath can't stand two things, truth and boundaries. Truth exposes them. Boundaries frustrate them. They need an environment where everything is negotiable, nothing is definitive, and you're constantly doubting yourself. Therefore, the best antidote to a psychopath is quiet, firm self-confidence. It's knowing how to say, "This doesn't work for me," even if it seems harmless, even if nobody else sees what you see. Remember, the absence of guilt isn't strength, it's emptiness. And however powerful a disguised psychopath may seem, they are merely masters of repetition. They don't create. They copy, they imitate, they seduce. But you, with awareness and purpose, can see beyond the disguise. Because those who see with a clear mind never again allow themselves to be blinded by the false shine of an elegant predator. Now that you've seen each piece individually, it's time to consider the whole, when the three become one: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Separately, each of these traits is a threat. Together, they form a perfect storm. The complete Dark Triad is rare, but when it appears, it's destructive and at the same time absurdly functional. These individuals stand out. They rise quickly, they charm, dominate, and conquer. But they don't leave trails of love. They leave trails of exploitation. They are charismatic as a hero, strategic as a general, and cold as steel. And the most frightening thing, they know exactly what they're doing. This combination creates a sharp mind, emotionally impenetrable, motivated by power, and obsessed with control. Such an individual doesn't want to be your friend. They don't want to be admired. They don't want to be loved. They want you to be useful. They want you to be a part of their plan, often without you knowing a plan exists. They seduce you with smiles and speeches, guide you with promises, and mold you with praise. And when you finally trust them, they change the game. And you don't even realize you've become a pawn. Or worse, you realize it, but you're already too involved to leave. The metaphor of the wolf in sheep's clothing has never been more accurate. But here, the wolf doesn't just dress like a sheep. It studies the flock's behavior. It learns the rhythm. It learns the signals. It even learns to bleat. It infiltrates. And when no one expects it, it attacks. Silently, surgically, without remorse. In the world of business, politics, and relationships, these figures often emerge as visionaries, compelling leaders, ideal partners, brilliant mentors. But there's a brutal difference between a true leader and a charismatic manipulator. A true leader cares about the impact. Someone with the Dark Triad only cares about the outcome, and if the impact is destruction, but the outcome is advantageous, they sleep soundly at night. It's important to understand that these people have no moral brakes. They only have calculation. If something is advantageous, it will be done. If it's risky, it will be weighed. But never based on right and wrong, only on cost-benefit. Don't expect remorse, don't expect empathy, don't expect reconsideration, expect coldness disguised as logic, expect distance masked as professionalism, expect control disguised as collaboration. And the cruelest part is that these people are difficult to identify initially. Because they're good at appearing to be everything you need. They have refined social skills. They know exactly what to say. They study your emotions like they're studying the weaknesses of a system. They are hackers of the human psyche, and the system they want to invade is you. Protection here is complex. It's not enough to observe flaws because these people rarely make them in public. What you need is to develop a radar based on long-term consistency. Analyze patterns. Observe whether words match actions over time. See how the person handles rejection, criticism, and boundaries. The Machiavellian narcissistic psychopath hates being confronted, they hate losing control, and they hate being seen as less. You also need to develop what I call continuous mindfulness. This means never fully surrendering to beautiful speeches without observing the structure that supports them. It means maintaining an internal compass so sharp that even in the face of charm, you continue to see what hasn't been said. And most importantly, it means not compromising your values for the sake of shortcuts or immediate rewards. The Dark Triad seduces with speed and destroys slowly. Therefore, haste always makes waste. Healthy relationships are built over time. The Machiavellian narcissistic psychopath wants to rush everything. They want to pull you into their game before you realize you're being played. And when you wake up, you've already surrendered your trust, your time, your energy, your peace. But here's the antidote. Someone with a strong purpose, an awakened mind, and consistent habits isn't easily manipulated. They already have direction. They already have structure. They already have a sense of self. And when someone from the Dark Triad approaches, they sense it. They may not understand immediately, but they feel the dissonance. This slight discomfort turns into awareness. Awareness turns into distance, and distance turns into freedom. Never underestimate the power of a trained mind. A mind that knows where it's going isn't distracted by those who only know how to deceive. Ultimately, those who master their own consciousness will never be dominated by anyone. Let's end with the most important point. Knowing the darkness isn't about fear, it's about transcendence. The Dark Triad, with all its coldness and manipulation, isn't here just to be fought. It's here to teach you. Yes, because every predator reveals something precious. How much we need to awaken to protect what we value most, our minds, our energy, our freedom. The disguised psychopath, the silent Machiavellian, the charming narcissist, they all feed on the same source, unconsciousness. They thrive where there's a lack of purpose, absence of boundaries, and an excess of idealization. When people live on autopilot, they become easy prey for those who live strategically. But here's the liberating truth. You can be the architect of your own mind. You can, with training, intention, and clarity, build an armor of consciousness that no manipulator can penetrate. Because the only way not to be dominated by an external game is to master your internal game. Think about it. When was the last time you looked at someone and truly asked yourself what that person represents in your life? What do they inspire in you? What do they demand from you? What do they give in return? Most people don't ask themselves these questions. That's why they fall. That's why they get lost. That's why they feel used, confused, and exhausted. Now imagine the opposite. You wake up every day with a clear purpose. You train your mind like an athlete trains their body. You build habits that shield you from distractions, and you observe the world not with fear, but with lucidity. This is true freedom. This is true strength. It's not about closing yourself off to people. It's about opening yourself to what is real and wisely filtering out what is false. It's not about distrusting everything. It's about trusting yourself more. Because when you trust yourself, what is inconsistent naturally reveals itself. Beautiful but soulless speech begins to sound empty. Manufactured charisma begins to irritate. Subtle manipulation begins to bother you, and then you distance yourself, not out of defense, but out of decision. The Dark Triad exists, and it always will. But now you know. Now you've seen the patterns, the strategies, the signs. Now you have a name for what was once just discomfort. And with a name comes power. With clarity comes strength. With purpose comes direction. The real victory isn't eliminating psychopaths from your path. It's building a mind so sharp, a vision so clear, and a structure so strong that they simply can't get in, because the gate to your life isn't open to what shines, but to what vibrates at the same frequency as you. So now, the choice is yours. You can close this video and return to the world as before. Or you can decide right now to transform knowledge into practice. That you will apply these points, that you will start today to strengthen your perception, to review your connections, to cultivate habits that make you unshakable. Remember, success isn't a prize you win, it's a daily construction, a constant decision. And it begins when you decide to be the protagonist of your story, and not an extra in other people's mind games. If you've made it this far, it's because you're ready to master your mind, ready to be free, ready to be dangerous in the best sense of the word, dangerous to those who try to manipulate you because you see. Dangerous to those who try to control you because you don't bend. Dangerous to those who try to take advantage because you have purpose, and those who have purpose have power. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to the channel now. Share this video with someone who needs to see beyond appearances. Leave a comment saying which point impacted you the most. Here at the Dark Psyche, we don't shy away from the darkness. We transform it into wisdom until the next deep dive. And remember, eyes open, mind sharp, heart shielded. The game has begun. And now, you're not just a piece, you are the entire board.